May the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts be ever acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, our rock and our Redeemer. For our final Holy Week compline reflection, I'd like us to think for a few moments about the Gethsemane scene. Here is the picture as Matthew paints it in his Gospel. Then Jesus went with his disciples to a place called Gethsemane, and he said to them, "Sit here while I go over there and pray." He took Peter and the 2 sons of Zebedee along with him, and he began to be sorrowful and troubled. Then he said to them, "My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. Stay here and keep watch with me." Going a little farther, he fell with his face to the ground and prayed, "My Father, if it is possible, may this cup be taken from me. Yet not as I will, but as you will." Then he returned to his disciples and found them sleeping. "Couldn't you men watch with me for 1 hour?" he asked Peter. "Watch and pray so that we will not fall into temptation. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak." He went away a second time and prayed, "My Father, if it is not possible for this cup to be taken away unless I drink it, may your will be done." When he came back, he again found them sleeping, because their eyes were heavy. So he left them and went away once more and prayed the 3rd time, saying the same thing. Then he returned to the disciples and said to them, "Are you still sleeping and resting? Look, the hour has come, and the Son of Man is delivered into the hands of sinners. Rise, let us go. Here comes my betrayer." Although we'll have an opportunity to keep watch with Christ at our Maundy Thursday vigil, I wonder how many of us have ever taken time to reflect seriously on this part of the Passion story. Jesus and his disciples have just shared the Passover meal and have walked down the hill so that they can sit and enjoy the stillness of the Garden of Olives opposite the Temple Mount. Jesus asks them to stay where they are, as he takes Peter, James, and John to be with him in prayer. Jesus is in turmoil, knowing that he's about to face the consequences of his radical message, and he asks his 3 friends to stay with him and keep watch. Why does he ask them to keep watch? At first, it seems like he's asked them to keep watch in order to warn him of any approaching danger, and that would have been quite understandable. But when Jesus turns and finds that they've fallen asleep, he castigates them for not being able to watch even for 1 hour, but then asks them to watch and pray so that they will not fall into temptation. What could that possibly mean? What could they possibly be tempted by in this quiet place and at this hour of night? Why is the watching important for Peter and James and John, and not just for Jesus' sake? Perhaps the temptation that Jesus was referring to had to do with not being strong enough to see things through to the end. He says to them, "The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak." How often have we known this in our own feeble attempts at following Christ? We set out with good intentions, but end up doing the very opposite of what we set out to do. Is that what was happening for the disciples here? They may have wanted to be with Jesus in his agony and turmoil, but they were tired, and perhaps not as fearful as Jesus himself. 2 more times he comes back and finds them sleeping, their eyes heavy, and we can easily imagine the scene. Anyone who's waited and watched alongside someone who is dying will know how easy it is to fall asleep and risk missing the final moment. But then, in the Garden of Olives, Jesus wakes his friends for the final time as his betrayer and the temple guards arrive. The night has fallen. The other disciples seem to have run away, and even Peter, James, and John manage to get away whilst Jesus is escorted off to the high priest's house. Peter follows at a distance, But all in the end desert Jesus, and as we know, in the early hours of the morning, Peter will deny that he even knew Jesus. Can you not watch with me even for 1 hour? It's a haunting question that echoes into our own lives as a question about our own faithfulness. Although the Holy Thursday Vigil is a symbolic action, a dramatisation of that evening in the Garden of Olives, it is also symbolic of our willingness to follow Christ to the end, to the cross. How far are we willing to follow on that Via Dolorosa? And how much are we tempted to fall asleep, run away, and deny our Lord when the going gets tough?